we're back. You're listening to Ain't Nobody Listening on Oman FM 90.4. With me in the studio is Said Al Shanfari, CEO of the Oman Convention Exhibition Center. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
What's really exciting me right now is the fact that we get to talk about the story that you shared in True Story Tent. Now, your story was very inspiring. It shows what the human capacity, and when we're faced with adversity, how we can push forward. But the nature of True Story Tent and how stories are structured, because each storyteller is given just 9 minutes to speak, there's so many questions that come from the stories that we hear. And I'm grateful that now we'll get an opportunity to first listen to the story, which is only 7 minutes long, and then we'll proceed with our conversation from there. Okay. All right.
I've always was unfortunate because I was a big part of a bigger family. So I wanted, and I was never really good at high school. I was never really good at anything in school at all. I remember one time my father came back from school and he asked the teacher, so how Saeed's doing? He said, Saeed is not so good, not so bad. And he came back home, he's like, you know who you are? You're not so good, not so bad. And I'm like, can you explain that for me? I hope I'm just like, I'm okay, am I okay? So it was really hard always to satisfy the parents, and coming from that generation, it's always hard to make that dream go high. So one day they announced the CEO program. I don't know if you guys heard about it. It's the Royal Dewan announced the CEO program. So a lot of my friends said, why don't you apply for it? I said, I was never lucky in my life. I was never lucky to get that golden ticket, to attend Justin Bieber. Yeah. I never really. I think if the draw was me and another person will win. That's how unlucky I was. But I was like, let me give it a shot. And then I really did give it a shot, and I applied, one of 2,000 people who applied for that program. So they were going to select 30 people to go for the first cohort. Throughout the sessions, throughout the surveys, we had to go through an extreme crucial surveys to get the right people. And I tell you, I did everything I can just to make sure I do it. And I think this essay, they sent us an essay, and they asked us to complete it within 48 hours. And I was traveling in Kazakhstan at that time. So I was actually doing it in the train, writing wherever I'd come up in a story, and then I just put it together and I sent my essay. So I passed all the stages. And on the day where I had my final interview, that's going to determine, now I've made it to the 100 people. And now I had an interview at the Bustan at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's a day I cannot really forget because it went quite extreme. At 10:30, I was rehearsing some of the points I want to highlight in the interview. Then I got a call from home. My sister called me. And she said, where are you? I said, I'm at the office. She said, can you come back home? I said, like, why? She said, my wife that time was pregnant. And she's like, your wife is going through some pain. And I was like, what, now? Can that be delayed? Honestly, it is one of those moments in your life where you know this. If you made this step towards your career, you might get a lot of doors open. I left everything behind. I ran to my house in Mawalih. And by the time I arrived home, she was not really at home. She was already at the hospital. So I drove to the hospital, and she was in the ambulance now, moving from the branch of Mawalih to Sultan Hospital. And imagine the nerve and the stress that was going through. And my main question, is she okay? And I want to be with her, making sure everything is okay. And then she had, I couldn't get the answer. So because we had to really wait until the doctor check everything. And then they went inside to the ER. And you have to be patient and you have to be cool. And I wasn't patient and cool at all. So then the answer didn't really come so quick. So I forgot completely about the interview. I completely forgot about the interview. I forgot about how difficult for me to make that single chance that might come only one time in my life. But I have my life inside that ER room also to worry about. Then at 12:30, I was able to see my wife. It was clear that she lost the baby. It was really hard for us. And then it was like, okay, is she okay? And the first thing she said, you need to go. I said, no, I'm going to stay. No, she said, no, you need to go. Because I know how much this means to you. And I said, no, I will wait. That chance will come again. And life is all about chances, but sometimes some chances don't come really twice. She said, you need to really go. I said, are you going to be okay? And at that moment, her sister arrived. And we were like, okay, I was a little bit comfortable now, at least her sister is there. So I really made that move because she also encouraged me to go there. By the time I arrived to Al Bustan Palace, I sat in the parking lot and I have no idea how I made it to that 45-minute drive. And I still have 15 minutes before my interview. How can I get back to my moment and to be able to speak about why should I deserve to have a chance at the CEO program? And I sat in my car thinking about so many things. And I had a flashback of my life, of my chances, where did I want to go, and how I want to proceed in my dreams. And I was like, how can you turn this around? And you know, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, you need to bring the inner side of you. You need to bring the power. You need to bring the Superman. You need to bring the power, the super person inside you to overcome this moment, just this moment. And I sat and looked at myself in my small mirror and said, you need to bring it out right now. And I said, this is it. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, and I had to leave everything behind. And then in the moment you realize that you left everything behind, now it's you and only you to make it or break it. The interview went well. And throughout the interview, they asked me one single question. They said, how committed are you to the program? I was like, are you serious? Do you know where did I just came from? So obviously they have no idea, but they said, how committed are you for the program? So really, actually, I remember I took a seat back and looked at them and said, only if I tell you, I left my wife at the ER room and just lost a baby, and I'm here for this interview. Do you think I'm committed enough? And they had no other choice. And they said, you know what? Is she okay? I said, no, she's okay, but that's how show you how committed I am. So obviously, I got selected for the program. And throughout the program, I became the CEO of OCEC. And I've learned through my life is there's chances come sometimes, and where you have to really bring the superpower inside you, because each one of you have a superpower. And only if you tag into it and enable it and trigger it at the right times, you'll be able to make your dreams come true. And it doesn't matter how difficult the road is to get here, but it's a matter about how much you can push yourself to make it happen to the next level. So that's my small story. Thank you.
I just want to start by saying I'm really sorry for your loss. My condolences on that. But when you went to the hospital, you had to leave what you were doing and go there. Where was your headspace at that time?
As I said, that 45 minutes, I had no idea where I was. So I know I have to drive, but I know I have to go to Al Bustan, and that 45 minutes, I don't recall it, I don't know what happened. I know I was in this space of confusion, let's say, and a lot of that confusion, probably sometimes you ask yourself, did you make the right decision? Like, did you really make the right decision to leave the hospital? Maybe you should have stayed. Priority is family, for sure, 100%. But then you're like, okay, so I'm going to this interview. Can I be focused enough? Can I control the situation to be able to say the right things and then answer the questions? Because now it's actually be 3 people in the panel sitting behind the table and then I assess you.
If you would allow me to go before that slightly, finding out, I mean, this is before going into the drive.
Yeah.
How did you take that moment? Because you have 10 million things that are running in your head, I imagine. You already have this thing planned out, and you get this devastating news, which is devastating for you and more so to your wife, probably. Yeah. In that moment there, what was your state? How were you acting?
I mean, one thing, you have to be a believer. Yeah, I mean, if this happens for the God will, for the right reason. And my first worry was about my wife. Is she going to be okay? Is she okay? Because I know that is the core of this whole thing, for me. I mean, just if she's okay or not okay. And then having the news that we lost the baby, I'm a strong believer that if this was a good thing for us, then God will have had a better way to deliver this to us. But because it happened this way, for the reasoning that beyond our knowledge, so I allow myself to accept those news and just worry about what I have in my hand rather than worry about things that I don't have in front of me. So, and they say there's two things that you should appreciate about life. One is what God will give you and what God protect from you.
Right.
And sometimes we focus so much in what will God give us in terms of physical or other things that we appreciate in life and health and everything else. But how much we really think about what would He take away or protect us from. And then sometimes we say, some people are a bit negative, but would say, we don't see the result of what we do best in our life, but how much do you know of that's being protected from you?
Right. You can never know, really.
Exactly. So
you just have to choose to believe that.
You have to believe that.
Because you can't never tell. So it's a choice you make that I'm going to believe that this is for the best, one way or another.
Correct. And there is this. My philosophy in life is you should appreciate the situation as it is. Try to challenge it, go beyond, discover, explore. But if it's pushing you to a direction, know there's a reason why it's pushing you to a direction. But also try to explore. Don't sit there and wait for it to just push you around, but rather go beyond, look in the horizon, see what is going on, ask for the reasoning. But there is some stuff you cannot really know exactly why it happens. Same like meeting people in your life, saying friends, bosses, whomever. And I always treat this kind of situation of being messages that you choose either to learn from or you don't learn from.
Yeah, but you don't think that way when something is happening right now. That comes later.
Exactly. So this is when you unfold it. Now, what the situation, you have to deal with what you have on hand.
Yeah.
So you cannot also show sometimes symptoms of weaknesses when you have to be
the strong one.
The strong one.
Yeah.
You have to be the anchor of that situation. So you are actually around you. They don't feel there's a problem, or they don't see that you need to make a right decision. You need to look at the situation from a place for you to protect yourself, the family around you, and the most beloved people.
Can I also say, like, one thing that I noticed in your story is not just your strength, it's your wife's strength.
Yeah.
The fact that she saw how meaningful this thing that you're pursuing is and had the strength to let you go and to insist that you go.
True.
So definitely kudos on her for finding that strength within her to be able to do that.
And that gives you how families and the ability to have a better communication. And then openness to proceed each other's dream. Like, you need to include them and not exclude them. You need to make sure that they're part of your dream, not of your dream. And she knew how much details I had gone through. Though at that point I completely forgot about this interview. I was just worried about just getting the situation in a let's say from that emergency to now to a safe zone. And then the first thing she came up with, like, you need to go. And I completely shocked me because she told me that, because it wasn't in my plan and I forgot about it. But then the way how she insisted, and now when I accepted it to go, then I'm worried about how would I even do now? How would I even recover from this shock? And sometimes life is like a paint. You don't know what color that suddenly comes to your paint. Either you deal with it and then add that beauty to it, or you just complain about that color being something you don't like. So and then you know how when you mix up colors, then you come up with a new color. And then it's really up to you how you mix and choose what you're looking for, or you're looking at also from that picture. So it was really her strength and that added to the situation that made my decision easier to go for this. And since there has been already a compromise, or let's say sacrifice in terms of comfort, that added more strength, like added more pressure for me to make sure I do the best out of that chance.
I always wondered in your drive to the interview after your wife insisted that you go, was there guilt that you carried with you? Because I was just listening to this story, putting myself in your position. I would imagine there'd be a sense of guilt that I need to somehow rid myself of, you know?
A lot of that. A lot of guilt, obviously, because you're really not sure yet, you know, because it's still, everything's still like in a mess. Your feelings, your emotions, your stress, you're happy, you're being happy that maybe going to something that maybe take you somewhere, but you're also at the same time very sad and stressed because of the news that you just heard. Would you be there? And if you are there, what changes can you make? And if you go, what changes can you make?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like end result, like, you know, if you stay, what you would have done? If you go, what would you have done? And then, did you do the right decision, not the right decision? But that's it, you know. For me at least, and then I'm driving, I'm going towards that direction. If I'm gonna go there, I need to do the best out of it. I need just to give it my A game, and then I have to find my inner strength, because the sacrifice has been done. What else can you do with this that makes the end result positive?
So this is the next big moment that was stuck in my head, because you describe the visual of a Superman. I don't know how I can translate it to me. Like, I don't know what that means. What is the Superman? What depths of yourself did you have to go to bring out this strength? And it's not just bringing out strength, it's also clearing yourself from everything you just experienced. What is that?
There was a story of a speaker I've heard of. I don't recall the name of the speaker, but the speaker, everyone was waiting for the speaker to come to the stage because he was the main event of the day. And right after the lunch break, they heard a news that his mom passed away. So there was a lot of concern from the audience, you know, obviously sympathy for him and everything. But there was a lot of people, we came from very far away just to listen to his speech, what would happen now.
Right.
Obviously being, you know, not in the middle of the situation rather than just an audience. So the organizer came up later on to the people who's there and said, listen guys, he's going to make the speech. And they were shocked, like, really, how would he be able to do it? And the story goes on, and then he went in to the stage and he stopped right at the edge of the stage. And he waited there for like 60 seconds just before he started the speech. And everybody was watching. He was just sitting in a silo situation, very silently, in his own space, in his own zone for almost 60 seconds. And everybody did the same. And then he shaked it off and walked to the middle of the stage. And then he did one of his best speeches. And then later on, they asked him the same question: how did you manage to get off that situation? He said, I've placed it in a zone, geographical zone for me. And that's my space of sorrow.
Could you re-explain? How do you mean?
So geographically, he created a space for him where he keeps his feelings that goes to the sorrow of losing his mom.
Okay.
And that geographical space was that 60 seconds that he created. And he was deeply went on to his emotions to kind of like understand, and this is the feelings that I have about this, and I'm not maybe sad or feeling of loneliness or whatever. And then the moment he walked away from that, he kept that feeling in that small geographic location, which is probably like less than a square meter. And now, if I'm gonna go to the middle of the stage, I need to bring my A game to be the speaker who everybody's waiting for. And then when I go back, I will carry that feelings later on and I will reflect on it. So he played the role of how can I separate it, both things. And into this story, what I learned from it is sometimes you need to continue, you have that feeling on you, but how can you bring your A game? How can you bring in that superhero thing? And the superhero is being able to, and you remember the superhero vision, you know, they're always like really regular people, probably the most boring people for the Superman story, yeah?
Yeah.
And then he's just having coffee and he's very clumsy and everything, and suddenly there is a need for help.
Right.
Suddenly he goes where? To the phone booth.
Right.
Yeah. Who use phone booth anyway, but still he goes to the phone booth.
To change his clothes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What would you need to change your clothes to actually come up and go and help people? And that is the defined moment of the geographic location that I'm talking about. It's something that he puts on, and the putting on create that superpower that you need for him, at least in the character of the story, that now he will help people. And no, he's not shy anymore. He's very social, and he's actually someone who's very beloved by a lot of people. So though we're talking about very, a story like a superhero is not realistic story, like not, in real world, but each one of us has his ability to bring their superhero inside them. We sometimes get so busy with our day-to-day life, but we're able to do a lot of changes. We're able to push ourselves to do bigger plans and achieve bigger dreams, only if we are able to reach inside our inner self and face the person who's inside us, who's telling us we're not good enough or we have less than what we're supposed to have, and then dig into more to it. And that's not just a one-day discovery, obviously. That takes many ways of reflections and going through, and there's a lot of tools that you can go through that.
So that was my next question. Can anyone access this?
Of course, but
like when life gets tough, when you're faced with a situation maybe similar to what you faced, where it's do or die, it's this moment or none, can anyone access that? I feel like not everyone would. Not
everyone immediately can access it, but therefore we don't really get to discover the self-person that who we are. We are, in a lot of times, we are in autopilot to take care of the roles and tasks that we have to do every day. How much of that time is we sit together, to sit with ourselves and reflect who we are, what is our purpose in life, what are we trying to do, how can we create a different. And a lot of people think about it from the role and task that they actually do. I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but at least I've been trying to find that self-strength that I have in, and how can you accommodate that to start serving a bigger purpose of going outside and then also serving others. But at that moment, it was now the dream of something that might make a difference, and that making difference could help to get a bigger impact of making a difference for others. So therefore, I felt responsible for it. I felt responsible for this, for the sacrifice from my wife that she pushed me to go there. I've gone through the 90% of the journey. Now it's about me just proving to those people. And the challenging part now, you have to show them your face and speak about how certain questions that you don't know what they will ask. So also being presentable, energetic,
That must have been tough, man.
And
oh my God,
it wasn't easy. And that 5 minutes looking at myself in the mirror, then later on I went to the washroom and then also washed my face again, just kind of say, we need to bring your best out of this. And
so
then,
you had to seem like you're happy, cool, collected, and nothing happened.
Like nothing has happened. You have that straight face of being professional, knowing what you want, clear objective of why you want to do it for, committed to what you're saying, and trustworthy for them.
Yeah.
And that has to be very visible. If you sounded shaky, not sure, also they are not interested in this type of interviews. They're not interested to hear your sadness or your personal issues. They wouldn't understand the consequences. They don't understand the background of the story. They don't know why it's become like this. So they're not interested until that was just the last question of the interview. I was about to leave, and then they're like, okay, we just want more question. How committed are you to the program?
Which was this was a very relevant question to your situation.
And if it was just someone else who just had a normal day preparing for that interview, would be like, I'm very committed. For me, because of what happened in the last 2 hours, this came as quite a strong question to me. And it was like,
how did they take it? I don't think you shared that in your story.
They were shocked. Like literally, like the guy jumped from his seat. I think the guy from the association that actually taken us to do the national CEO program. He stood up and he said, "Is she okay? Are you okay? You need to go back to the hospital." So they were like bit of a disbelievers. And then also at the same time shocked that I made it to be here and then just 45 minutes, an hour ago I was at the hospital. But they shared a lot of sympathy about it and appreciation for that. But they were shocked.
When did you know that you succeeded, that you made it through?
So the interesting part of the story, they accepted me right after they announced everyone in 2 weeks after that meeting. And they actually accepted me for not for immediately the first cohort. And they accepted me for the second cohort. So I was part of maybe 2 or 3 of us who got accepted earlier in the program to go for the second cohort because they had a lot of amazing people going to the program. And I always thought it's best that I actually went to the second cohort because they get to try on them, and then we get to learn from the trial. Yeah. But they're all amazing people. We've had the best program and the best network.
What was the conversation like, if you don't mind answering the question or me asking, with your wife when you actually succeeded and got the job? Because she also made that sacrifice.
Definitely.
So I imagine this was a success for the both of you, not just one person.
I mean, as a family, you don't work. You're a team. I mean, your wife and your kids and everybody. So I actually get them involved in what I do generally. So and I do a lot of personal self-development, self-reflection, and I've gone through a lot of different programs because I myself focus in life coaching and also organization developments. And every milestone of these, I get them involved to understand the impact, because you need to play a role model for it.
Yeah.
And without him, I wouldn't have succeeded, because there's a lot of time where I'm away from the home.
You say them. Who's them?
So I have my wife and 2 kids. I have 2 my daughters and 2 boys. So we're 4. Yeah. So we're 6 in total. So and I mean, my 2 daughters now are the teenager age now, and the 2 boys are still in the 4th grade and 1st grade.
Okay, so you married young because you're a young guy, mashallah. Yeah.
So yeah, so after being back from the US, better just to start a family and then go through and then so they're always part of this, and we are one team, and then they understand what I work on, they understand the milestones that I look for, because you also want to build for them a dream that they also proceed for themselves. And I was lucky to get to know self-development and working in those things not so late in, I would say almost now 10 years ago, but I think the earlier you expose yourself to do self-discovery, the better that you can get to understand there's more superpowers that you have inside you.
How do you go about that?
Since
I mean, there are a couple of ways you can find who you truly are and where your strength is. One is the unfortunate but reality, it's the unfortunate reality of life, and that is, you're going to go through hardship. And we're all going to go through hardship. And in those moments, at least from my life, I've noticed the moments that I've grown the most came from when I pretty much hit rock bottom. When there is no way down, there's only one way up. Khalas, there's nothing. There's no other direction you can go. And so you get this mindset of if this is so miserable down here, then let's try anything else. Something new, something different. Let's explore this side of ourselves that we haven't explored before. That's one way. That's the hard way. How can someone develop these strengths without going through that? Is there practices that they can do? Maybe certain meditations or self-reflection techniques that you are aware of? You don't want people to struggle only for growth, just for the sake of growth. What can people do who are, say, fortunate that didn't go through the most difficult stuff?
You said actually the right thing, yeah? You said you learned the most when you reached rock bottom. And that's what actually they say, the most learning you get is when you get into the situation of uncertainty. When you get into the situation of confusion, you're out of your comfort zone. Now you'll have to deal with it, figuring out every tools you learned in your life. How would you get yourself out of the situation? And then you should not just survive, but you should also grow. And then when you go through that, is now you're looking for those elements of survival. How can I survive throughout the situation? What should I do? And then a lot of us probably perceive it in a way that is negativity, and then why me? Why it's happening to me? Why this time? I've had so many of these. And how can I take myself away from survival and then start growing? Is the only way for you to actually reflect on what do you actually learn from this? And is it another hard lesson to learn? Because if it was just an easy road, and if you just drive in a straight line road, you never discovered your skill of driving.
I like that metaphor. That's a good metaphor.
And it's no hurdles, it's straight, there's no hills, there's no turns, there's no like speed bumps, nothing. And then what would you actually learn from that? But if there was a turn, because you get to see the road on the side, now you're discovering it because you're slowing down, you're turning around. And I always said to people, when you drive in the morning to work and then suddenly discover there is like traffic jam, what do? They're like, oh, we look for shortcuts. I said, fantastic. So when you go for those shortcuts, what do you discover? What do you discover in your neighborhood? You probably discover there's a new laundry next to your house. You probably discover there's a supermarket you never realized just behind your house, but you keep going to the far one.
Or there's a faster road you didn't know existed.
Or there's a faster road. Or there's, since when they build this building? This is nice. Maybe I move here next time. So you discover all of that just because of a situation turned difficult for you. And you made a choice and a call to actually discover something different about that place. So this is a very simple way to look at it. Yes, it's probably you will come late, but the knowledge you get out of that is something. So
such a great metaphor. Yeah, totally.
And you just need to allow yourself to accept that this happens. And probably at the situation itself, it's not going to be appealing. It's going to be difficult. You'll probably go through the difficult part. But after that, you should sit and say, what did I learn from this? What else did I learn from this? Write it down, reflect on it. Look at the trend. When did this happen before to you? How many times before? How did you deal with it? What was the outcome of it? And then you discover that you had strength that you're actually being generated because of these situations.
So this is the crucial part here. The missing link for most people is reflection.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
It's hard to do because we allow ourselves to be busy day to day with our daily tasks, and we're not anymore sitting and reflecting. Sometimes some people do a reflection when they finish their prayers, just sitting in the sajada and then just reflecting on their day, reflecting on things that they can do better. Some people wake up early in the morning. Some people do it through sport. Some people do it differently.
Journaling
or being an artistic in their own. And I think even by journaling, when you said that, people who write or people who read or people who paint, you discover at a certain point they lose track of what is happening around them. It's because now they are accessing their inner side. They're accessing their subconscious mind. And now they're pulling things from memories, from reflections, from emotions, from different places.
Yeah, the state of flow.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you need to allow yourself to tap into that every once in a while, because we're just too busy taking care of the day-to-day tasks. When do you allow yourself to focus on you, not the tasks and everyone around you? It's not to ignore the others. You should do them all well, but you also need to look at what do you learn from this task? What do you learn when it's difficult? A lot of people will probably say, I don't like my boss for this million reasons. But what did you learn from being
the employee?
What did you learn? What would you take away when you become the next boss? How do you reflect on that in your day-to-day work? Would you be the same boss? Would you avoid doing what that boss is doing?
I unfortunately have realized that for many people, the default is, I am going to complain, but ask them what the solution is. They haven't even thought about it. So why are you complaining?
People like to be the victim on the situation.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to be the victim, and then even if you challenge them to look for a solution, they don't want the solution, because it's fun to be a victim. It's interesting because you want everybody to look at you, see, listen, poor you, empathy you, and all of that. But what do you do about it? And then what are you representing? And who do you want to see you being in the victim, and how long you want to be the victim for? Because there's people who's watching you, and people who's watching you could be their next role model, and they're around you and they're very young and they're probably just seeing you every day. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's your kids. And if your kids see that you are the victims and continue to be a victim, what are you creating?
They're going to adopt the victim mindset.
Because they believe that's the style of my future leadership. This is the guy who can move mountains if he wants to. Today he's being a victim. So how can you turn those things around and look at solutions? How can you be the tool can make a difference for others and first for them?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to be completely honest, I find myself sometimes falling into that mindset. And it's like, you have to remind yourself, you have to catch yourself. You're like, stop being a victim right now, because it's useless. You're just there soaking in your own sorrow and misery and feeling bad about yourself, and nothing is changing. Yeah. So I can understand where people's tendencies are coming from being victims. There's almost like a comfort in that type of sorrow. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, definitely. Because you like everyone to watch you, feel bad for you, maybe come closer to you. Let us help you with this, let us help you with that. But
it's important to snap out of it.
But the power is, how can you take yourself to the next level? Yeah. It's what can you take away from it? And then accumulate this knowledge and use these tools to the next step and the next big decision, and keep going. But you need to find yourself a space for reflection. You must find a space for reflection. I do my space of reflection when I exercise. I go for long jogs. I try to listen to different books. I do a lot of audiobooks. I try to listen to things that also I learned things from, and then kind of like question my state of mind. Am I doing the right things? Am I not doing the right things? And there is always continuous learning, because no matter how much you know about this, there's still like, you need to continuously challenging yourself day to day, and you still will do something wrong, and still you will snap out of this situation and you get upset. But then you're like, okay, I need to hold here. I need to look at myself in the mirror again. Am I doing the right things? How can I do it better? How can I create a better impact? What else can I do? And then make a change out of this.
What motivates you, Said, if you don't mind me asking? What gets you up in the morning and gets you excited? And then this is not it's not a PR kind of question. It's, what's the bigger picture for you?
So you probably expect me to say the biggest convention center.
Yeah, no. but it could be connected to that, because that is your path, of course. But what is it that, what moves you?
For me, every day I wake up in the morning wanted to deliver two things. One is to create an impact, positive impact on the people around me. Given that as a family, friends, people who I care about, colleagues, and that impact has to be accumulated to something that big that can create a positive change around us. And the second thing is, since I'm managing and also a role that is responsibility and everything, is to leave a legacy. And then leaving a legacy means that you do something that stays there for them for a long time. And then when people...
For them, who is them?
So my colleagues and the people who works with me in this sector. And so no matter what sector, so I've worked in different sectors before, so now I'm in this sector. But it's to leave a legacy that continues to evolve to become something bigger. Because when you want to leave that space, you don't want to leave that space of just a seat. You leave a space for something that they look back again and say, it started here, and we need to continue making it grow. And leaving that legacy is important for me. And then whatever it takes to leave a legacy is important. So one is create an impact for the people around me since the point I wake up in the morning until I go to sleep. And then also, how can I leave a legacy behind so people can take and make it grow?
I was having this conversation literally last night with my colleague Azzam Al-Raisi. And maybe it's a little bit of a dark question, but we were talking about the idea of legacy. And I never understood, because I also have the urge of leaving a legacy, but I just don't understand where that comes from. Why do we feel that we need to leave something where future generations know Said or Abdullah, it's because they did this that we are here today? Why does that matter to you? For some, it's having children. That's a massive legacy that you leave that will last. Why do you feel like that is something we care about? I don't know.
I love the question. It's not really a dark question, but it's actually an interesting question. So what did people leave behind who we today recognize as a legacy? And that we need to reflect on that question. So the cave people, when they went and started drawing, who told them they need actually to draw? Like if you ask yourself, you're sitting there at night, no electricity, nothing around them. Oh, you know what? Let me just draw. But was it really a mission for them to draw? And I think there is this human being that we live by, that we need to leave something for. Maybe someone can come back and do something with it. And if you remember at the millennium, with the 2000, people went and left capsules in the ground, yeah?
I did as well. Me and my uncle.
Here you go.
So he was the one who guided. Until today, we didn't open it, but we know exactly where it's buried.
So what did you do it? Why did you do it for?
I was a kid. My uncle told me, and I don't know. I wanted to be Muhaqqaq Conan at the time. Who knows what I wanted? But I never asked him why he wanted to do it.
And now, since you remember it, what do you think that reasoning that your uncle actually made that choice to go and put the capsule in the ground?
Great question. I'm gonna ask him. But I don't know. Why? Why do you think he did?
Probably that's the definition of probably leaving a legacy. Leaving something behind that you can do something with and grow with it. Something that create a difference, an impact on the next generation. So they say also, there's a lot of our knowledge that we live by every day doesn't really go and share it around. So probably Abdullah Anta, you lived all your life, you had a lot of experiences, so much stories to tell, but probably what you get to share is maybe 3 to 5%. Maybe being in a media side, maybe you share more.
I actually don't share much usually.
You ask a lot of great questions, yeah.
Yeah.
But then the other people don't really get to share a lot of it for many different reasons. Either the space is not available, or they don't have people who listen to them, or they just choose to keep it for themselves. So imagine that knowledge that actually never gets shared, and it goes to the ground after many years of being living, and then you only get to share some stories with some people. So they actually they went and actually put a number next to it. And I don't recall the statistic where it came from, but I heard it from one of the speakers of one of the lectures. So they say 97% of what we learn from all our life go to the ground. So only 3% get to be shared. And then only if you decided to go and write your next book or become a lecturer, someone who will go and document it, do something with it.
Or share it on True Story Tent.
Or share it on Story Tent. And then you get to have other people to see your story and then maybe do something about it. So, and then when you say that story at in your show, then someone that you probably never seen before is being inspired, and probably that day he made the choice in his life that transfer completely his life to something that's so useful, so powerful. So how much of that you like to be? It could be in that side, or it could be a side of no sharing or no knowledge transfer. And then you keep that for yourself, and it goes to the ground with you. So now legacy is all about how can you create a difference for other people's lives and create something that can not just inherit and see, but also do something with it and grow with it. So similarly to the cave people, similarly to the capsule that you kept in the ground.
I think I know what you're saying. And I think with the way you described it, your idea of legacy very intimately connects to the first point, which is you want to have an impact. It's the same thing, kind of. You want to have a positive impact on your surroundings, the world in general, and so that when you leave, that legacy is left behind. Growing up and watching a lot of Western media, I've noticed that there's this idea of what you should be seeking in life is happiness. I don't know what this happiness is that they talk about. They're very good at showing you different life's pleasures. Is that happiness? And then there's this seeking that people do of this eternal happiness, which is not a reality. We will go through hardship over and over and over. There is no constant state of happiness that I've seen in any human being. So at some point, it felt like that was a futile pursuit. Like, why am I pursuing this thing that is constantly fleeting? And I found, and I'm working on it, I don't claim to be anywhere, enlightened. But the pursuit of purpose and meaning seems like it makes sense to me. And so where do you find purpose and meaning? For me, I find it in people and their stories. I find it in the intersection between what God gave me with my skills and what I have an inclination towards, plus how you can benefit other human beings. These two things, you put them together. That makes sense to me. I wonder if you thought about that question. What are you seeking? What is your purpose? What is your meaning?
I love your example, because actually that is you see, meaning of happiness can varies from one person to another. What you described is creating, you use your ability and your strength of creating a space for others to tell a story that could inspire many others outside. And you know, waiting for the result that to come directly to you, because you really you cannot quantify, you cannot control the audience that's sitting outside. There's probably someone who just got to hear that story today on the radio, and then make that difference, and you wouldn't even be able to know.
You wouldn't know.
But being in that situation where you created this space have made so many people capable of making a difference and change, rather than having no space to do that.
Right.
And use your capability to ask right questions and creating that space, the welcoming attitude, and to make them feel comfortable to say what they have to say from their heart. And so what I wanted to get into that, you know, now my loop to this place is, how can you discover what is your strength? What is your capabilities as a human and as a person? Because not everybody share the same tools. Not everybody have the same skills. And then we sometimes take our skills for granted. We don't really focus and say, well, listen, I'm better than that other person, or I have this ability to convince, to negotiate, to talk, or to listen.
Or I have this background that gives me a very unique perspective.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or experience.
Yeah.
And now how can I utilize this to do something different? How can I utilize that space to create other happiness to others? And now how you define the happiness, when you do this space, you become happy. When you give them that space of the story tent, they become happy. And then you leave that place knowing that you've done something right. And how can you... So the other people also have to discover that as well. For me, happiness, it comes from serving and giving that, taking your uniqueness to serve others.
Yeah.
And how you discover that, it's not just a journey of a day, because you also have to look into the trend and the patterns of how you did things in your life. And then when you look around, you find people who's really amazing people on things that they do in everyday life. Climbing mountains, riding or exercising or writing things or painting. And what would you do with that to make a difference for others? How can you do something with it? And inspire others on something. So I think the definition of happiness depends on one person to another, because then you feel that fulfillment inside you. And you feel that feeling of satisfaction that I've done something different today.
Do you feel like in order for you to find meaning or purpose, that it always has to be connected to service to other human beings? Because I don't see, personally, I don't see any other way. Yeah, I mean, I understand that you do things, sometimes you do things for you, I get it. But is that going to fill you with purpose? That you're doing something worth a while? It seems like it's always connected to what you can do for other people.
And if you search it out in different searching engine, you will discover that actually it is about serving people. It's purpose defined to be how you find in your uniqueness and your skills to find and then serve other people. And it could be also achieving a certain objective, but by achieving those objectives, someone would say, I would want to climb all the biggest mountains in the world. Yeah. That's great. That's the skills. But is the purpose is just to climb the mountains and go home and close the doors and do nothing about it? But is it also about inspiring others to perceive and achieve their higher goals?
It's a good example. That's a good point. And maybe you have two people who are doing it differently. Maybe one person, the whole thing is climbing the mountain. Don't document it. I don't care. I want to do it to challenge myself. So in that case, actually, would that person be filled with a sense of purpose or maybe a sense of purpose, but will they have a sense of meaning? Or like they're doing it for, I don't know.
So that's because sometimes you use your uniqueness, but you don't know why you're using it for. So you're confused as well. And then there will be a point in your life where probably, I'm just thinking, you'd be like, so why am I doing all of this?
Yeah, what for?
And what for? And probably because they started at an early age and they still have that just like the rush in their blood and to just do something that is amazing, and everybody will look at them, wow, you're amazing and everything, but then they never really think it's enough. They want to do something more, so they will see them going to another mountain and a third mountain, a fourth mountain, and now achieving even higher goals. And then you say, are you happy? And then probably they will pause, and then they will be thinking, I'm not really sure anymore. Maybe I need to either I should continue climbing more mountains, or should I take these skills and do something to impact others, or make others, or make this world a better place? How can I take this now and do something with it? And I think this is all reflection of self-reflection, self-discovery of people, and that's the space I personally enjoy to look at, because each one will take the different conclusions from each one of these stories, and what would you do with it, and how can you be the next best things in your life?
Well, we went very philosophical on this one, which is beautiful. I'm always a fan, but I also know that there are lots of listeners out there that, once it gets heavy and philosophical, maybe they're not in the right headspace for it. So that's okay. I'll tell you what, if you don't mind, we're going to go out on a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more practical. So you went to the CEO program with the Diwan of Royal Court.
Yeah.
I would love to learn about what did you learn from it? What skills did you get from there? And then you've been the CEO of OCEC for how many years now?
4 years now.
4 years. I bet you're filled with nuggets of knowledge. So we would love to talk a little bit about, some practical things from the perspective of a leader and from the perspective of a person who took this CEO program, right?
Fantastic.
Well, we'll be right back.
On your nation station, 90.4 FM.
And we're back. You're listening to Ain't Nobody Listening. Abdullah Al-Ma'wali here. With me is Said Al Shanfari, CEO of Oman Convention and Exhibition Center. For the past hour, we spoke about the different programs that are happening within the new season of OCEC. We spoke about the story that you shared on True Story Tent of how you became a CEO. And then I also asked so many questions regarding that story, which got very philosophical. If you're driving and you missed that conversation, don't worry. It's available on the podcast. Just search for Ain't Nobody Listening in your favorite podcast app, and you'll be able to find this conversation with Said Al Shanfari, as well as 50 plus other interviews up there. So go ahead and just search for Ain't Nobody Listening. So now, if you don't mind me talking about what happened after the story. So you got into the program. It's a program that was offered by the Diwan of Royal Court, a CEO program. Could you tell me a little bit about that and what the experience was like?
So the National CEO program meant to actually prepare the next generation CEOs to go to the private sector and also fill key positions in the country. And so it's taken those young, exciting CEOs and younger generation of different group people. So I was lucky to be the second group, and then we get together as this 30 people per cohort and 100 people as the whole group, network together, get to know each other, know the capabilities of each other, knowing that we have so many talents in the country that actually can lead and then also grow different organizations. That by itself is one of the key objectives of the program, is to create this network of different young Omanis who can actually drive the next generation development of the country. And the second part is actually to make us get the best education, best lessons from one of the lead organizations, IMD, which is very well known with their program for executive and CEOs and also leadership.
Prior to getting into this program, what was your educational background?
So I did 2 degrees, one in I did a bachelor degree in computer management information system.
Okay.
And I also have a bachelor degree in international business administration. So that's what I've done in the college in the US, and also did a different of Erasmus program, which is actually an exchange program in Holland. So got to learn a little bit about the European way to do business as well. So then I came back again, did different programs, just some training and development of dealing with people and management. But then I did an MBA from Hull University here in Oman with an exchange of the UK.
So you already had quite a bit of background in this area.
Yeah.
What do you feel this program, the CEO program from the Royal Court, what did it offer you that you didn't have before?
So I was trying to think about it in a way for us to understand. I think education gives you different perspective. It's different tools and different elements that you can now create something better and different. and then helps you to deal with challenges that you face in the world of the day-to-day world, in the business world or a personal world. And I always think about it as like if you get used to go to your local supermarket behind your house, and you know where everything is at. If you go there, probably blindly, you will go and know where the milk is, you know where the ketchup is, and then also you go to the pasta, and then you know where everything is. And then probably cook the same regular meat or meals that you create every day.
You're saying if you're relying on your experience, then you might end up just repeating the same thing over and over, like going to the supermarket and picking the exact same ingredients.
Exactly, and after some times, your information, your data, or details become an absolute. So you need something that refresh it. You need to know what the new research, new developments, new technologies, new innovations that actually around us and surround us globally. So allowing yourself to go to such a program is introducing you to a new cuisine, introducing you to a new supermarket, a bigger one that has more options, and then allowing us to go and interact with something that's actually in the lead of education sector, like IMD, was fruitful for us to see where we stand in terms of education at that level, and also how the country also in a level of other countries around the world. So also we were able to see competitive reports that position Oman against other countries in the world. What else can we do, and where we stand in the numbers, in the numbering and the list. So that is all was exposed to us. We met also people, future leadership from different organizations in the world. We were able to interact with them, ask them questions, see how did they make it, and what challenges did they face, and how they overcome those challenges. So there was a great learning. We were the first group did the National CEO program. Then Royal Court also did different programs. And then now we have also the Royal Academy, which was recently launched, which now have more programs offered to the future leadership of the country.
It's beautiful to see all these initiatives targeting leadership roles within governmental institutions as well as private institutions. It gives you hope that there is hopefully new stuff coming, better stuff coming. And working for the past decade, it's nice to see such a program come to life when it wasn't as prevalent in the past.
Agreed.
At what point did you end up becoming the CEO of OCEC after the program?
So I think a few more years after that. And the interesting part is actually I've worked for 16 years in the telecom sector, and I've been also upgrading in the telecom sector until I reach a managing director of a units. I was in marketing and also performance at Oman Tel. That was my last position before I moved to as CEO of Oman Convention Exhibition Center. And before that, I've worked also at Ooredoo. And then I've had quite an experience in the sector of creating products and designing and marketing and everything. And when I was approached for that position, first of all, I was like, I'm not really sure this position meant for me. Probably they had other plan. But I was approached by a headhunter who said, we would really like to interview you just to see how can you fit with the sector of the hospitality and MICE industry, where you will have to manage a venue. And from where I had the experience from before, it was more of managing events and products and everything. So I was like, okay, the logic and the common sense is there, but let's see how this will work in a different space. So I went to the first interview, or actually before I went to the first interview, I went to meet the agency first, and then they called me back after 2 weeks. They're like, sorry, but they actually wanted people from the sector. So you didn't make it to the short list. So I was like, okay, fine. I think that sometimes things happen for a good reason. And I said, I wish them all the best. And so they contacted me 2 weeks after that and said, we're done with the people from the sector. Now we want to talk to people outside the sector. I'm like, okay.
It seems like they were not impressed.
So maybe you want someone else to bring a different perspective. So that's the message I got, They wanted someone who can bring a different perspective to the industry, maybe take things in a different way, and then challenge the status quo of the current situation. So I remember I went to the interview, and one of the story I keep telling, and my colleague who's head of security now, he knows the story because I've told it a couple of times before. So I prepared myself for the interview, read about the sector, I knew what we have to do as a venue and everything. And so I prepared a few slides that they expected from me to present to the board. And then I met the head of security at the door when I arrived to the OCEC. So that was my second time arriving to the OCEC after only one time I attended the book fair just a few months before.
Sure.
So he received me at the door and he's like, sir, can I help you? I was like, yeah, I'm here for the interview. You mean the CEO interview? I said, yes, I'm here for the CEO interview. He said, yeah, okay, please come with me this way. So I was walking with him and he came closer to me and he said, listen, I think you are the best one.
This head of security.
This head of security. He said, I think you are the best one. I think you will make it.
Reason? Did he give you a reason?
He didn't say much about it. He said, I think you are the best one. I think you're going to make it. So he made me sit in an area for waiting area. And then he gave me a couple of brochures about the center. Like, I've already got this detail, but he was just offering them to me. And I was like, fantastic. I mean, thank you so much. But the amount of boost and energy I've got at that point is like now, I remember the same story that happens before. Someone is telling you, you got it inside you. Do the best out of this again. And it's offered by someone who's a complete stranger. And then it was like more of, I'm going to bring my A game again. So I came in, would bring in my A game. Now I have to bring my superhero.
Right.
So I went to the meeting room to the interview and I did the interview. I remember I did an excellent interview. I had a good interaction with the boards and they had asked a lot of great questions. And I was able to answer most of them just from the knowledge that I've got from my research. But I've never really worked at the sector. I left the interview 2 hours later on. They called me. They're like, we're very much interested in you. We would like to meet someone else in next 2 days. So I met someone else that was the head of the CEO of Umran back then, and that group CEO. And I met him for half an hour. He was very impressed. And 1 week later on, they offered me the job.
That is insanely fast.
Yeah, and it was quick because they wanted someone like to come in, and they had a bit of challenge of putting things in perspective, managing the center, managing the contract, a couple of other things. The project was still in development as OCEC because it took another 2 years until we completed the whole project. So someone also had to manage on the ground with the contractors, the deliverables, and then ensuring everything works as per the plan. And if you ask me, have you ever thought you will be a CEO of a convention center after 17 years of working in telecom? I'll tell you, probably not. But that's one of the things I've thought about and I've been attracting to my domain is to have a job that can promote the country as a destination and allow me to go and talk about it around the world positively to attract more tourism to the country. I've always thought about that formula. And that just didn't happen when I was in telecom. That was even before that.
It didn't happen in the way that you thought it would, but it happened.
Because I always have considered myself as the ambassador for my country. Anywhere I go. When I traveled for my
Studied in
university.
The US for a while. Yeah.
Exactly. Traveled around the US and Holland and different places. Every time I go outside of the country, I'm the ambassador of my place. So I have to show the beauty, the values of being a national Omanis. And we show them that in every possibility to showcase the country. So I've always had that, what if I take that and then become my job? Yeah. But I never really thought it's going to be the convention center, and then this happened this way. So I've been working now for the last 4 years. And I tell you, when you become a CEO of a center or a CEO of a company, no one wait for you at the door and give you a manual of how to manage a company.
Okay. You just got to figure it out.
No one waits for you and say, listen, CEO for dummies, yeah?
Yeah.
There's not such a book like that. There's no one hand you a manual and just tell you this is exactly the recipe of make it successful.
Yeah.
You will have to rely on everything you've learned. Your experiences, dealing with people, dealing with changes, dealing with transformation, dealing with challenges. And then you need to come up with the best approach that can take this organization to the next side, to the bigger side. You need to start with the house. You need to start working with the fundamentals, with the values, creating an aim, creating a true north for them to know where they're going. And you need to make sure everybody understands the objective and the job that they have to deliver.
So what is your true north then?
As an OCEC, we have a lot in our minds, and we have a strategy that we want to be that destination for event, not just in Oman, but in the whole region. So we wanted to attract locally and international event and bring more tourism and increase the GDP of tourism in the country. That is very important for us. And we're not aiming just to bring small stuff, but we want to bring bigger stuff. And we want to make it happen with the hands of a team of Omanis. We are at the 92% of Omanization at the company. We work together as an exciting, ambitious professionals who deliver not just a simple event, but a professional event that could head-to-head with any international event around the world. It's very important that, and I'm being very precise with my team, nothing will go below the global expectation in terms of quality. We cannot compromise, and we have to be at the top there, and then take whatever experience we learn from this sector and then make it grow, not just in Muscat, but also grow to other areas in Oman. And to be able to manage venues and spaces and then make events happen in different locations in the country. So we start from making it the best location to have your events, to create a professional outcome that comes in, and then also grow that to other places.
So that's quite a few things. Could you encompass all of that in one sentence that would tell me, when you're lost, what is the north that you look at?
That destination to bring your events for you to always remember. OCEC.
Ding!
And that's all event.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you're thrust into this role. Of course, you worked hard for it. You worked 17 years leading up to this, but it's kind of a new industry. I'm sure you faced a lot of challenges. What are the big ones? Okay, let me ask a question that I feel like, maybe I would face if I were in your situation. The initial imposter syndrome. Am I the right guy for the right job? Did you ever experience that, initially at least?
I think you can, when you become the head of the organization, you're not expected to know everything also. You're not expected to be the most expert in finance or technology or in pricing, or in operation, or maintenance. You need to know how to utilize the resources that you have around you, how you select the right people around you, how you empower them to make the right decision, and then how can you make them see your vision. So leadership, and I think, and CEOs is like sitting in a bubble. You sit in a bubble that you have a vision that you want everyone to see it. So this bubble is everybody see this bubble around you. They're outside of the bubble. And every once in a while, you take one of them and bring them inside the bubble and say, listen, this is how I want to go. And this is how we all go together. And this is the reasons, and those are the tools, and how we're going to go there. So you sit in this place where you show them the dream. And then you say, now you need to release them so they can take care of the business and take care of making the best out of the events. And then they go out there to execute. And every once in a while, you bring them inside the bubble. And every once in a while, you show them the dreams. You always have to, if they are working hard, you need to make sure that you are 10 times higher. You need to be 10 times excited, passionate. You need to show them that you. And I always say, my teams, I don't mind rolling my sleeves. I don't mind moving chairs if I have to. And they would see me doing that stuff sometimes, and they would stop me. And I said, because every single person in the organization create the dream that we're trying to achieve. And that include the security guy, the furniture people who move the furniture, the cleaners, anyone, because experience starts from the moment you arrive to the center. So they are as important as anyone else at the center. So you need to make sure you also emphasize on these values and you work with them to see, and then you need to be the leader in this direction. And that's very important when you come to these situations. And then all this knowledge doesn't come, again, from a book or anything. You just have to use your common sense. You are in business to serve others. You are in business to create events. You are in business to make events to remember, so that quality and everything has to be there. But also you are in the business to create one ship that can sail from the beginning of the event till the end, and then deliver what expect from you, and then exceed their expectation if you can too.
Yeah.
So so the hard part is how to combine all of this together. I think in management is not difficult sometimes to deliver a project. I tell you that the honesty. But it's how can you make the people get to deliver that project with you? People management is not an easy task, because you deal with not just their challenges at work, but you deal with their challenges as humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are a lot of people come in the morning carrying a lot of weight with them. And you can't control that because you are there for the next 8 hours or 9 hours. So you want them to execute the best out of they can during these 8-9 hours. But what you could do for them is to create a space for them, for them to see passion and do other things that make them busier and then make them excited about what they do at the office. So maybe that reflection of positivity goes back and then help them to create a solution of what they're facing before arriving to the office.
What would an example of that be?
Motivation, talking to them, being close to them, be passionate of what is happening. Always use the right words when you meet with them. Do not select challenging words. Use words that they understand. Use examples they understand. Every once in a while, connect with them. Create space for them to know what's happening in the organization. Being the smaller person in the company or the bigger person in the company.
Well, I want to ask you a question that I asked a couple of CEOs we had on the show before. And by the way, they have different answers. They're not the same. So I'm curious with you because it connects very much with the point you're making right now. How much vulnerability do you show your employees? Now, I've had two different answers. One that said, yeah, I'm totally vulnerable. And the other is less so and is more hesitant and chooses carefully. I wonder for you, because everything you described so far, it feels like it takes a lot of energy and strength. You have to be the strongest one. You have to be the most passionate one. You have to be... Like, you know, do you ever show them that you're having a bad day?
They've seen me in bad days. They've seen me in good days. What they see is who I am.
So how willing are you to be? And what, you know, everyone has their own ethos. For you, do you think like you should show vulnerability to your employees, or you should hold it in and be the stronger one?
I think it depends. Personally, I think it depends of different challenges and different dealing. For example, people in different positions who's taking care of the operation on the ground, you cannot show them so much of vulnerability because you want them to be focused on the task, and you need to show them strength, passionate, and more of ambitious to do why we're doing all of this. So I always refer to them as the champions of the center, and they're the true heroes of making events happen. And then when you come to the middle management and higher management, you need to be showing them lessons that they can take over with them in the future. So by not just keep looking at certain situation by saying, it's okay, we'll fix them later on, but also show them why we are doing it this way. You should show them a certain type of a solution that you tell them, this is one way to do this, but you can have many other ways, and then you should explore the other ways as well. And then give them the space to go and make mistakes. Give them the space to just do something and then try it on. And if you make a mistake, it's fine. At least you go back and learn from it. But you should realize that you're making a mistake, and you should realize that you should also do something about it. But you should not just bang your head in the wall and come back again and you bang your head again exactly the same way.
Yeah.
When you face a wall, either you climb it or you go to the right, go to the left, break it,
or back up.
But but just don't sit there and wait for someone to say, hey, listen, you have a wall in front of you. Because then I'm just stating the obvious.
So where does the vulnerability come in?
Vulnerability come in when you express with them and show them where the challenge is. So you will have to be honest with them, be honest and transparent with the situation, and do not hide any fact that they probably mislead them later on to go somewhere else. And at least personally, how I look at it. And I try to create those platforms for them to see what I'm trying to do by meeting them on a weekly basis, 1-to-1 every month, and by meeting all the employees at least once a quarter, to be able to be honest with them, show them where we are, celebrate small events, celebrate small achievements, and then show them that you can actually achieve higher goals. But then also vulnerability can come from when you face a challenge, you say, we're going to go through this together. And then it happens very clearly during COVID. And I think during COVID, there was a situation where like, what's going to happen to hospitality sector?
Yeah, it's the first thing that got hit.
Yeah, it's the first thing that got hit immediately when they started talking about COVID, stop all events.
Yeah.
No more events should happen. And a lot of companies also really like fire their staff like around, and depending of what sector they're working in, or they're able to not renew some people contract, or just ask them to leave. Yeah. So now we're dealing with a situation we're not really sure how long this is gonna go for. And then at the beginning we said, listen guys, we're gonna go through this together. This is a challenge that we seen around the world. It's gonna hit quite heavy in the sector. We don't know if this is gonna go for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. We don't know how long this is gonna take. But what we can do is we have to do it together. And we have to face this challenge together. So we cannot allow this 2 years just to go by with no use. We should not allow that we look back and say, before COVID and after COVID. We should deal with it as a challenge that we can learn the best out of, and create the best outcome out of it. And I think, and then what we did together, we defined a certain project that we want to work on. Going back, let's go and then do a proper inventory system for our equipments. Let's go back and look at all our pricing, find a better methodology for us to start pricing. Let's go and look at everything around the building in terms of maintenance. What else can we do to have sustainable energy, reduce cost, reduce expenses? Let's hit the bottom rock so we can actually realize if nothing happens here, what is the bare minimum expenses that we'll have to pay?
Yeah.
And we went through a crucial exercise of doing that because we had 2 years to go through. And we didn't know that back then it's going to be 2 years. But the objective is to reach the bottom that says, without this amount of money, we will not be able to survive. And then I said, it was a personal decision to say, if I was not forced to reduce anyone's salary, I will not reduce anyone's salary. And then my promise is, I will do this, but we guys all have to come out of this more knowledgeable, better people, and able to receive the new world with a bigger plans. But we would not sit here and be quitters, So that kind of speech actually shows vulnerability, because I really don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not really sure how would I deal with any pressure that's going to come from either the industry, shareholders, or whatever is going to happen next. But to be able to communicate that, share with them challenge, but also give them a hope at the end of the channel that we have to do it all together.
Okay, I'll try to rephrase this then. So you expressed that in those moments you felt some, uncertainty of what's going to happen next. Do you let your colleagues or your employees know that you have that uncertainty, or do you keep it within?
No, I keep it within. Because as a leader, you also have to see beyond what you see today. You need to look at the trends and the forecast of different elements. So you look at scenarios. Scenario 1, this is going to happen in 6 months. Scenario 2, 1 year. Scenario 2, 2 years and beyond. And one of the scenarios could impact, if this is going on, it's going to go for a longer period of time. What are you going to do with these employees? How are you going to sustain their jobs? What else can you do with this? So you'll have to foresee.
Yeah, and that's a lot of pressure on an individual.
It is.
Yeah.
But you always have to surround yourself with the right teams, with the right second lines, third lines, who also can receive the message and also cascade it to the rest of the people. You need to make sure the communication also flow down, especially when it comes to decisions that we need to take together. And we cannot have someone in the organization who says, well, I wasn't really informed about what next. But yes, you continue to do this. So we do personally, like in OCEC, we do like at least every quarter we do a pit stop. So every manager will stand in front of everyone, tell them about what have we done in the last quarter and what are we planning to do next quarter. They stand there, and then we also celebrate small achievements. We recognize those achievements in front of each other. And at the time of COVID, we did it also online. Though the news was not great, though we know that it's not really the best time, but we didn't want to miss not having those quarters, because we believe communications has to continue being open.
Yeah.
And we have to still deliver a message of what we've done before, like last quarter. What can we deliver after this quarter? We do an annual gatherings for all of us where we all get together, but also do a smaller one for all the management to talk about strategic. What else can we do in our strategic plan? So we have a 5 years plan. Where did we achieve? How much farther we need to push? What else can we add to the plan? And how can we start forecasting ourselves for the future? And what has changed in the globe around us? So creating those channels of communication helps them to also see the true north.
How many employees work for you?
120 people.
120. What is the most valuable lesson you can share with us about being a leader for such an organization?
Well, there's a lot, but I would always tell, and people who know me, I will ask them to do three things, especially when you come from outside of this sector. And I've learned it the hard way throughout the 4 years. It's because I really don't know how, at the beginning, this sector actually combined together. People see the event sector from an outside. They think it's very simple because they come for one day for the show and then they leave in a few hours.
Yeah.
But there's probably 6 to 8 months of planning, of details, and then discussion of how this event's going to happen, who's going to be there, and so much details. They're not easy details. And then sometimes you will have an event that you have to combine a space against technology and people and expectations and so many different elements. What I learned, and I think that's a lesson I could carry forward and ask others to take it, ask always the right questions. Ask a lot of right questions, and don't be shy about asking stupid questions. I don't think there is any stupid question anyway.
As a leader, you mean?
As a leader. Ask your team questions. Ask them, even if you don't understand finance, it's fine. You should recognize that you don't understand finance, but that's why you hire a director of finance. That's why you hire an operation person, because they know better than you.
Yeah.
But ask them questions. Ask them about how this works, what are other solutions. Give them the challenge and ask them to give you solutions. Ask them to bring solutions to you. So ask a lot of questions and listen a lot. Try to be an active listener. Focus on what they say. Listen to every detail they tell you. Be an active listener. Be there when they talk to you. Do not have two things that you're doing at the same time. Just listen to what they tell you, because there's so much they tell you that could be so useful for you to make the next big decision. And the third thing is sometimes you need to lose your ego. Some people like they keep their ego even if they don't understand what they're talking about. So they want to act like they actually know what the other person is saying, or oh yeah, just do that.
This connects very well to the point of vulnerability. You have to be able to be willing to be vulnerable enough to admit what you don't know and ask those questions.
Definitely.
And getting rid of the ego, that's part of it.
If you're an expert in all fields, then why do you need to hire other people?
Yeah, one-man show.
One-man show, and that never really ends in a good scenario. You need to also rely on the people you have with you, so you can allow yourself to focus on strategical objective, not just operational objective.
Yeah. Wow. A kid from Dhafar, 12 siblings, and here you are today, 4 years into being the CEO of OCEC. The kid with the bad luck, if I remember from your story.
Yeah, almost.
Do you ever look back and be like, how did I get here?
A lot of times, and I have a lot of appreciation to everything that happens to me. I mean, my parents, the people who I lived with, my family, my tribe, people who have known me, all the knowledge and all the experiences that I gained throughout my life, And I always say every experience, there is a learning from it. And I said earlier, even with your people who you consider to be bad bosses, they're actually being the best bosses because they taught you a lesson, maybe not the easy way, but a way that for you to always remember. And if I made it this far, I would like to create more of this young kid from anywhere in Oman to be make his next dream come true and create this impact that can make this Oman and the country more amazing, because we deserve to be so amazing like that.
Well, we're reaching the end of tonight's show. Anything you'd like to leave us with before we say goodbye?
I would like to thank you, Abdullah, for giving me the space, and I must say that you've asked a lot of great questions.
Some stupid ones as well.
No, you've actually asked very good questions, and they mean a lot of depth, and they made me reflect on a lot of what I say. And I think my only message is there's nothing that can stop you if you really focus on the dream that you want to achieve. I think, and nothing happens immediately. Everything happens with time, with persistence, with more tools that you can have. The more tools you have, the more reflection that you get, the more self-focus that you get yourself out of the zone of being at any situation. Just focus on what you're trying to do. Be persistent. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days, but just keep going. Just keep going, because there is people who's watching. You are a superhero for someone. You are yourself superhero. And there's so much for you to gain from this world.
Said Al Shanfari, CEO of Oman Convention and Exhibition Center, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Of course, you can find out about all the different programs that are happening at OCEC by visiting their website. That's www.ocec.om. You're also on Instagram at Oman Convention.
Yeah.
You see, I follow you guys.
Well done.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Abdullah. Thanks so much.
I showed that. Nobody listening. Ain't nobody listening.
Ain't nobody listening.